To make the beaded stretch ring, you'll need 30 to 40 delicate seed beads. We're using gold-plated seed beads, and they're size 11/0. Then you'll need a faceted coin bead. This one is black spinel and is 6 millimeters. You'll need 2 faceted rondels. These two are teal crystal, and they're 2 millimeters by 3 millimeters. And finally, you'll need 2 faceted rondels that are garnet in 2 millimeters. To put it all together, you'll use elastic beading cord. We're using 10 inches of elastic beading cord. This is 0.5 millimeters in width. For tools, you need a beading needle, scissors, masking tape, a strip of paper, clear nail polish, and a bead scoop, but that's optional. To get started, you'll need to figure out your ring size, and a fun little way to do that is to cut a strip of paper and just wrap it around the finger that you want to wear your ring on. And I went ahead and pre-cut this, but you see, you wrap it around and it matches up. And then what you can do is lay that down on your work surface, and you can use that as a guide as you're beading. So we'll set that aside for now. Then you want to cut a 10-inch piece of elastic cord, and you're going to want to fold a piece of masking tape over one end, and this will just keep the beads from sliding off. Just a little piece of masking tape. We sometimes use a bead bug for this, but these beads are so small, I think masking tape just is more reliable. So that's going to keep our beads from sliding off. And now we can feed on our beading needle. We like to use a beading needle for a project like this because we are going to go through all of the beads 2 times, and this just makes it much faster. I'm not going to feed a ton of the elastic cord through the eye of my needle because this is going to have to go through all the beads, and you have to tug a little bit, so you don't want this completely doubled up. So now I'm ready to start beading. And to do that, I'm going to start by putting on one of our garnet faceted gemstones or rondels. You'll want to make sure that your beads actually can slide over the eye of your needle, and that the elastic cord can fit through it 2 times. So be sure to do a little test before you get started. So that's our garnet. Then we're going to feed on a teal rondel, like that, and our beautiful faceted spinel coin. And the finish on that is just spectacular. Slide that down. And then we're going to mirror that image that we just created there, that pattern, by sliding on one of our teal crystals and the other garnet. So now we've got the stars of our show on our elastic cording, and we can start feeding on our gold seed beads. Now the seed beads tend to come in little tubes like this, so I like to do a little trick, which is dump some into the palm of my hand, and then I can fish them sort of out of the palm of my hand using the end of my beading needle. So to do that, I just basically tip each bead onto the end of my beading needle, and it just makes it go faster. So I'm going to do kind of a bunch of these at once and then slide them down. You'll see that you might have to work them a little bit to get that little tail of elastic cording through, but they go through just fine. So I'm going to keep on beading. We chose these delicacy beads because we like the cylinder cut of them. I think it just looks extra elegant. The rounded seed beads looked a little casual with this spinel and the other, the garnet gemstones and crystals. So we just thought we'd go a little fancy. These are also actually gold plated, which is just nice. I mean, when you're using a really nice gemstone, it's often nice to use beautiful findings and beads around that. So I'm just going to slide that down. And I know this isn't enough yet, but I'm going to show you how we're going to see how much more beading we need to do. So I'm just holding up my slip of paper that I know is the right diameter of my, or circumference actually, of my finger. And you'll see I've got, you know, a few more seed beads to put on there. So I'm gonna just keep going. Now you could feed these on one at a time, but I really feel like your fingers get in the way of these tiny, tiny seed beads. So it's easier to sort of fish them out. So here's my slip of paper again. We're gonna see how the size looks. Looks pretty good. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna use my scoop. We love this beading scoop. We use it like crazy. This makes cleaning up after a project very easy. Just slide them right in there like magic. I missed one, there we go. And now we can move on to turning this into a ring. Now we've got a little trick for you that's going to help us hide our knot. And I'll show you what I mean. What I'm going to do is cut this little piece of masking tape off like that and carefully slide off the garnet and the teal crystal. And I'm going to set those aside for a second and put another piece of masking tape back on this end. Now this is going to seem crazy, but it's going to help us get the knot where we want it. And that's sort of key with anything that you're doing using elastic cord like this. You want to make sure that you're able to hide your knot. So now we're going to feed on the garnet and the teal crystal. And you'll see why we're doing this. There's a method to our madness. And now we're ready to circle this around to turn it into a ring. So you'll see when I circled this around that that teal crystal is going to wind up on the other side of the spinel and match the pattern on this side. And when we tie our knot will end up right next to the spinel and we can pull it inside to hide it. So that's why we're doing all of this craziness. Now that we've got this circled back around, I'm going to take my beading needle and feed it back through all of my beads. And this is when the beading needle really comes in handy. So I'm just going to feed it through a few at a time and then pull it through like that. Once we get started, it'll stay in the circle shape, but at first it's just a little tricky to get it going. So I've gone back through these beads here, and I want to leave a little bit of a tail here where my masking tape is because we're going to need that tail to tie the knot. So I'm going to feed my needle back in where I came out here to do the next little section of beads and just pull that through like that. And it helps to kind of hold on to the beads when you pull the elastic cording through because this is now going through twice. So it's a tight little fit in there. Keep going through. Now the reason for going through all of the beads twice is because it just makes the elastic ring sturdier and less likely to break. And if by chance it does break, your beads won't go flying all over the place. But we've actually never had one break because we think this technique really works to go through all of the beads twice. The beading needle that we chose is a flexible beading needle, and we think that helps with this kind of project because it can bend through the beads and curve and it's just more flexible. Now I'm going to go through my garnet and my teal crystal and come back out next to the other end of the elastic, which is next to the spinel. So now what I can do is tug the ends carefully. You want to hold onto your beads and kind of pull each end to get the beads to line up. So the elastic, because it's gone through twice, there's a little bit of a gap there. So I'm holding onto the beads because otherwise you could pull the elastic straight through all of your beads again, which you don't want to do, and it could come out. There we go. So now I can remove my beading needle from one side, and you can either pull the masking tape off, or I tend to just cut it because I think that's easier. Pull that off. And now we're ready to make our knot. So we've got our two ends here, and we're going to start by just tying one end over the other, kind of like you would if you're starting to tie your shoes. and pull that pretty tight. Don't pull so tight that you snap your elastic and break it, but you do give it a pretty nice tug. Then we're going to start again just like we did to make an overhand knot. This time we're going to go through the middle one time and then a second time. I think this is called a surgeon's knot. You see how it's gone through that center section twice, and then you pull that tight like that. And then I like to do one more knot on the top just for good measure. So just one more like that, and then you pull that tight. Now we're ready to trim our ends. And you don't want to trim them too close to your knot, but we do want the little ends to be able to get hidden inside our spinel. So we're going to leave them a little bit long, but not too long, like that. You can always trim them more later if you need to. Now we like to add a little bit of glue or clear nail polish on top of the knot to secure it, and also it'll help hold it inside our bead. So I'm adding the glue right on, or the nail polish right on top of the knot. I got a little bit on me, but I won't worry about it too much. And now what I can do is pull that knot inside my spinel like that. So I've pulled that elastic cord knot inside my spinel, and this clear nail polish will kind of keep it glued in there. You could also use GS Hypo or some kind of jeweler's glue if you'd like. So let that dry a little bit before you put it on. And now to put on your beautiful beaded stretch ring, just roll it on your finger like that. Super easy to wear, so pretty.